Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after it's another miracle. And hey, I don't say that lightly. I'm looking at a stat here. The Winnipeg Jets are the first team in NHL history, to be trailing with under a minute left in regulation in consecutive games, but win both games. This is, I said it last time, I've been saying it all year. This is another Renny take that is evergreen, that is just aging just perfectly. This is like a storybook season. This is fate. This is the Winnipeg. I mean, this does not happen. I was saying this last time. Teams go entire seasons without being able to generate a come from behind goal like that. And the Winnipeg Jets did it this game. They did it last game. If you remember, they did it against Chicago earlier on in the year. I know it wasn't quite the same situation, but it ended up being the goal that sent it to overtime. The game after that Chicago game, which I think was the third game of the year, or maybe the second game of the year or something like that, they played the Minnesota Wild, pulled their goalie with 3 seconds left in the first period, and scored off the draw in that game. This is absurd what is happening. And I described it on sorry, I'm just gonna get get that off the screen there. I described it as being like a fairy tale. Like, this doesn't feel like reporting anymore. You know what you do when you report? You state the facts. You dig up the facts and you put them out. The facts here sound like a fairy tale. If you're a Jets fan, could you imagine things going any better than they are? This is absurd. This is entirely absurd what is happening over and over with the Winnipeg Jets. And this game, just another example of it. And once again, I say the Winnipeg Jets, they are earning this is the universe giving back to the Winnipeg Jets what the Winnipeg Jets are giving to get to this situation. This isn't, the Jets fluking out a victory. Hey, listen, the last time the Jets had a game like this against the San Jose Sharks, and I'd like to talk about the San Jose Sharks at some point. We'll get to that. But, that was probably the harshest I've been towards the Winnipeg Jets so far this season, was that last game in which I kind of ripped on them for pulling off a game they didn't deserve to win, that they really didn't show up for in the way that they were supposed to show up. They ended up winning it out with a little bit of skill. And then that was the game I had my really see I told you so moment, when they did the exact same thing the next night against the Anaheim Ducks, and it didn't go in their direction, right? Well, this is this night where the Winnipeg Jets just do what they've done all year long. They stick with it. The efforts there. Give credit to the San Jose Sharks, and we'll dig a little bit deeper into them and how they played this game as it goes on, because I do think it's important. But they played last night. I think to a degree what you saw towards the end of that game was the Winnipeg Jets. It was a mixture of the Winnipeg Jets kind of stepping up their game, but it also, I think, had something to do with the San Jose Sharks not only came out and busted through everything they had on the ice for the first period and the second period, and a decent chunk of the third period, kind of ran out of gas and just basically played on their heels and were white knuckling it, trying to hold on. Most teams, a lot of teams, that'll be enough, but not against the Winnipeg Jets, because they've got mojo on their side. They've got the universe on their side. They've got their work ethic on their side. And that's why we're taking a look at another situation here where in the most crucial of moments, the Winnipeg Jets are finding a way to produce in a way that I can't ever remember seeing this before. It's happened so often this season. And to add to that storybook feel, it's Mark Scheifele who scores in overtime to set the franchise record. Like, you can't write this stuff, what the Winnipeg Jets are doing this year, and yet they keep doing it and doing it and doing it. They feel like a team of fate. Problem is, you need to feel like a team of fate at the right time of season. The Winnipeg Jets, though, they keep doing what they're doing and keep working the way that they are. They're going to put themselves in a really good spot to end up being, that team of fate come April, come May and maybe even June. That's my take on this whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business for his take on this whole thing. Everybody, here comes Kenny. Kenny, very soon we're going to be able to call out people with hot takes and have a reason.
Indeed.
To do it. I'm going to get a little warm up here and go to Nicholas, who says to Eagle Eyes, I'd wager Josh Morrissey is the most underrated player in the NHL. Probably won't be in the top voting for the Norris when he absolutely should be. He controlled that last 5 minutes. Don't do this, Nicholas. Don't do the whole we're Winnipeg, we're underrated, all this kind of stuff. Josh Morrissey right now is fourth in betting odds to win the Defenseman of the Year, to win the Norris Trophy. He opened eyes. People know who this player is. This is just more of that we don't get the attention that we deserve kind of attitude here. But that said, if you want to get into the debate of he should jump ahead of the likes of Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, or Zach Werenski, who are the three players ahead of him in that list, that's a debate to be had, but let's not do this thing where people know exactly who Josh Morrissey is. We were talking about him. He's well known across the league. We did this forever with Kyle Connor. I don't know. I don't tell people how to fan, but for me, the whole no one respects us and no one gives us the time of day and everyone on our team is underrated. I don't need to hear any more of that storyline. I think people know who the Winnipeg Jets are. Anyways, Ken, looking like $1 million there. I think you got a black shirt on, or you got a heck of a shadow that you're throwing there. I got to pull out this old bad boy here. I shouldn't say old. I still feel fresh in this thing, but it was kind of a little bit of a style where the suit jacket didn't match the pants. Still works, I think, because what they do down at Vittorio Rossi is timeless. Hey, if you want to look timeless, you can head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim that Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, I've run out of ways to try and describe how this team is able to generate right at the most crucial of moments. Let's see you give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting, right? With about a minute left, we were wondering if this would be the first time in a while we'd have to pull out the old Jets got goal lead storyline here by Vitek Vanacek. Pretty wide disparity. Sorry about that. Unplugged. In terms of the high danger chances, I mean, the Jets, it seemed like they had the puck on their sticks for I don't know, is it 70%? Maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration.
Well, what was the disparity in those high danger chances? Because I actually thought Connor Hellebuyck made like 4 or 5 10 bell saves in this game.
Well, the final tally at 5-on-5 was 15-6 for the Jets in high dangers. So they had it pretty wide in terms of all situations. I mean, when you include the power play chance for Celebrini, it was 17-6 for the Jets. So I think Connor had to make a couple good saves. I think he made a really good save in the third period off his shoulder. That was off of Colin Graff, maybe. I thought that one was a really good one also, but felt like the Jets had the puck in the offensive zone for like wide swaths of the game. And then they just found a way to crank it up in the third period. And like you said, it felt like San Jose pushed at various times in that game, Sean, and they obviously benefited from the first 3 power plays of the game, but it just seemed like they spent so much time defending that, ultimately it was going to, the Jets seemed like they were going to find a way in some regards, but at the same time, you kind of wondered if this was just going to be one of those games where, you stick tap the opposition goalie and kind of move on and carry on your way. But I mean, again, the Jets just seem to keep putting pressure on their opponent. And I kind of wondered why they was unassisted, the Morrissey goal, but I went back and looked at it again on a couple of occasions. And I mean, Mario Ferraro does have a touch of the puck. I mean, I don't know if that was full possession, but after the Ehlers shot in front, when all the chaos is happening in front of Vanacek in the 6-on-5 scenario, Ferraro kind of tries to poke it on his backhand. It goes right out to Morrissey, and he unloads and absolutely rips it home. Again, through traffic, I thought Velarde did a great job of getting to the net, causing a lot of commotion. But Sean, that play doesn't happen unless there's a great zone entry, right? Morrissey goes cross ice to Scheifele. Scheifele goes cross ice behind the net, angular pass to Ehlers. Ehlers kind of, to me, Sean, kind of unloaded a little bit too early from a wild angle. But because of the commotion and chaos caused in front by the Jets, the puck gets poked out to Morrissey and he blasts it home. And yeah, and then again in overtime, Sean, Jets went with the classic kind of Globetrotters there, move the puck around. They got a couple of spin moves where they tried to get their pick play to go. And then ultimately, Scheifele leaves it for Ehlers on the drop pass. A quick snapshot, eludes his defender, finds the puck, and puts it home. I mean, we've seen this script and movie in multiple 3-on-3 scenarios. But just to me, it seemed like the Jets. I mean, again, we often laugh about the deserve to win a meter and all those things, but I mean, if you're the Jets and they lose that game 1-0, there's disappointment. But if you're Scott Arniel, you're not pointing to a bunch of situations and saying, oh, well, got to pick it up here, 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 and here. Their finish wasn't good enough for 59.5 minutes, but the majority of their game was pretty solid. I mean, it took a William Eklund one-time clap bomb on the power play to beat Hellebuyck. And, yes, I agree. He made a couple of big saves in the game, but I mean, the Jets limited the Sharks to 17 shots on goal in the game. Obviously, I'm going to give the Sharks credit, Sean. I mean, they played the night before. They didn't look like a team that was tired. To me, they battle. They work incredibly hard. I thought Macklin Celebrini. It's my first chance. There you go, Dane Johnson. Celebrini is going to be a heck of a player in a year or two. He's a heck of a player now.
This is a Pristine Roofing wake-up call, right here. He was. I thought the best.
I think he means it in a complimentary manner, but I'm with you. I mean, we're not waiting for a rival. This player has arrived already.
Oh my goodness! I thought he was the best player on the ice tonight until the very end of the game. So yeah, I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to give Dane Johnson for saying that Celebrini is going to be a heck of a player in a year or two. I was actually thinking if he keeps continuing on the pace that he's on right now, and added more scoring towards if he had a great start to the season next year, this is a player that I'm confident could play on Team Canada, Ken. Because he can play fast. He was great defensively.
He's sure.
So good on the board. Did you see that one time he went into the boards with Adam Lowry, and Adam Lowry had like body position? He took the puck off Adam Lowry on the boards. Like, this guy plays the boards amazing. He's dogged. He's good defensively. This kid is insane for 18 years old. This isn't going to be good in a year or two. So that clearly for me gets the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. And you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. North End Rick was a big appreciator of Macklin Celebrini on this night as well. But North End Rick's number, 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. You will be glad that you did. Just to sorry, I cut you off.
Just for the record, I'm with you. I mean, I wrote this morning in the warm-up, or this afternoon in the warm-up, or game day newsletter at the Free Press, that Celebrini, I think, is already on the radar for inclusion for the Olympic team, especially with the 2 more players being added on the roster for the double IHF rules for the Olympics in Italy. And man, I love the way that he played. It was my first chance to see him live, Sean, and I'm blown away by how impressive the young man is. Incredible, awareness on the ice, so that his compete and battle level was incredibly high, and we know his skill level is super high also. But yeah, I mean, he was. I agree. I think Morrissey was the best player on the ice personally, but I mean, Celebrini, you notice him almost every single shift.
Good point.
On the ice. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting, like you said, Jets fans are kind of becoming accustomed to thinking they should just win every game. Doesn't matter what the score is late. That's their. I think we were trying to check on the statistics here. That's the 8th 6-on-5 goal this year, Sean. 7 of them with the goalie pulled, and one, or sorry, at the end of games, and one, as you mentioned earlier, the goal that Scheifele scores at the end of the period where they pull the goaltender with I think it was under 2.9 seconds to go or whatever it ended up being with the Wild, where they scored at the end of the second. Man, it's impressive to see the way that they're able to rally. And Sean, again, just classic composure by the Jets. They didn't look frazzled. I mean, it was one of those games where you keep looking up and wondering, how are the Jets losing this game? But they didn't force the issue. They didn't, take a bunch of muffin shots from the outside just so they could pad the shooting stats. Vanacek had to make a ton of great saves in the game, I thought. So again, if you're the Jets, you're happy with most of it. I mean, there's always little things to clean up, but I do think that the bulk of the game was sound. I didn't see a lot of puck management issues for the Jets. But again, can they crank it up a little bit? Sure. But I don't think that, the Jets had too much to be concerned about until late. But again, they're obviously going to feel good about the way they're able to get their winning streak to 10 games. I mean, that's an impressive accomplishment at any time. And we understand there was a 2-week break in the middle, and, it doesn't feel like a 10-game streak. That's what Kyle Connor said this morning. The break kind of disrupted a few things, but overall, Jets are pretty happy with where they're at. But I mean, Sean, 24 games to refine some things. I mean, the power play needed to be a little crisper for me today. Again, this is absolute nitpicking, but just didn't see as much quick movement and unloading of shots. Yes, there were a couple chances, the first unit at times, but they just weren't as crisp as what we've been used to seeing them. But again, it's 2 games in after the break, and I mean, overall, I thought Hellebuyck was very solid in his first game back. You always wonder if the level is going to dip, but I mean, Connor is pretty dialed in. Sean, on Sunday, I know you're traveling home after the game in St. Louis, but I mean, Hellebuyck had the old dialed in eyes going when he was talking about the Four Nations and processing the disappointment and the raw emotion, and feels like he's going to be taking it out on every opponent until the playoffs arrive, and then he'd like to keep that going there as well. So, again, perfect shot that beats him. Otherwise, rock solid for Hellebuyck. Overall 4-line game. I mean, Jets top line I thought was good. I mean, statistically, the majority of things coming out looking fairly positive for the Jets.
Yeah.
In terms of, scoring chances, for high danger chances.
Leave some meat on the bone, so we've got places to go.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I just wanted to touch on this. Bardot says is Celebrini better than Lane Hutson? I think so. Now, Lane Hutson to me is Quinn Hughes-esque.
Sure.
In that he's got this crazy special high level. But I also remember a play the first time Montreal played Winnipeg this year, in that there was a play that Lane Hutson was in front, and it was his job to stop Adam Lowry, and he just couldn't, right? Like, you just can't, right? And that's what you get with players like that. There were some people who were critical of Quinn Hughes in the playoffs last year because all the really big defense, the Tyler Myers of the world, were great for them in the playoffs last year. And Quinn Hughes was not as great because Quinn Hughes is not a very big guy. He's actually a pretty small guy, Ken, just like Lane Hutson is.
Right.
I put Celebrini ahead of Lane Hutson. I put him ahead of Mitch as well. Just because, A, he's producing the way that he is, but B, exactly what I was talking about, where Lane Hutson just cannot stand up against a guy like Adam Lowry at 18 years old. At 18 years old, Celebrini is in situations like these. And I just think it's vastly, so people are already asking about the debate between Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini.
Right.
I didn't think it would be possible for Celebrini to be better already. I do think that he's better. Now, I think that Connor Bedard, when he gets it all together, is going to have more of a wow factor. But it is almost impossible for high-end skill players to walk into the game with as complete a game as Macklin Celebrini has. That, to me, is what makes him a really, really special player. Like if you were saying right now you get to start a team with Matvei Michkov or Lane Hudson, or you're going to go with Macklin Celebrini, I think you would be crazy to not go with Macklin Celebrini, because like what I saw from him tonight, I thought was just absolutely spectacular. I do have to say, I'm a little I'm not sharing your take on the game, or a lot of people in the chat room here. I thought San Jose was remarkable in this game. I thought that though there were a lot of scoring chances, and I think that the Jets were controlling more of the play, I still think the way that San Jose handled it when the Jets were controlling the play was very, very impressive to me. I think they challenged the Jets with their speed quite often. I thought that they were very, very calm under the assault that is the Winnipeg Jets forecheck. And I do think of this, like, I take a look at these two goaltenders, and yeah, the Winnipeg Jets were getting goalied, but Connor Hellebuyck goalied the San Jose Sharks in this game. There was a lot of opportunities for them to win the game, and I do think of the scoring chances that each team had. Okay, so maybe it's 15-6, but I thought like of those 6, the majority of them were 10 bellers for the San Jose Sharks. I was impressed at their ability to get to the inside of the ice on the Winnipeg Jets. And all the people, this to me goes back to, remember when we had that conversation about Utah? And I get it. This is just how it goes. Typically, fans are going to see this. They saw that Utah game back there, and I didn't see what fans saw. Fans, said, oh, the Winnipeg Jets didn't have a very good game tonight. I thought the Utah Hockey Club had a really great game that challenged the Winnipeg Jets. I put this game in that category. The San Jose Sharks challenged the Winnipeg Jets. I'm going to be honest, as much of a miracle as this is, if San Jose didn't play last night and they came with that game, they win this game without running out of gas. And I think they win it legit. Now, were the Jets at the very, very height of their powers? No, I don't think so, but I don't think that they were far off it. And I do think that you just have to look at games like this in the absence of the Jets having any kind of failure as being, this is the kind of game that other teams need to play to have success against the Winnipeg Jets. This wasn't the Jets taking a night off. This wasn't the Jets entirely getting the game stolen by a goaltender. Did they carry more of the play than the San Jose Sharks did? Undoubtedly. But the San Jose Sharks handled it well when they didn't have the puck. And when they did, they created in a way that I don't think I've seen a lot of teams create against the Winnipeg Jets this year. So I think that they should be given credit. That said, you changed my mind right in the middle of all this, Ken, when I said I thought Macklin Celebrini was the best player in the game, because Josh Morrissey was clearly the best player in the game. And I just wanted you to launch into what made him special on this night, which is, let's be honest, he's special pretty much every night.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Josh, obviously it's the goal, but I mean, to me, he's just all over the ice. I mean, 4 shots, 6 shot attempts, 29 shifts for 29. And Sean, the incredible part about the game tying goal from Morrissey, he was on the ice for 2:02. But as Scott O'Neill pointed out after the game, Sean, it wasn't like they were in the offensive zone for the bulk of that 2:02, so he wasn't expending as much energy as maybe you wonder if a guy's tired at the end of the shift. Well, Josh has such an ability to recover. His recovery is exceptional. And Sean, when you think about what Josh went through just 4 days ago at when he got knocked out of the game by this crazy virus, and then to be able to play almost 30 minutes 4 days later, just exceptional. And, great recovery for, just one of the elite players in the National Hockey League. And I mean, people are asking, Josh is right in the thick of things. I mean, I've said this, I don't know how many times this year already. Josh is going to be a finalist for the Norris Trophy. He should be. He is deserving of that, and I expect him to be there. He will be in the top 3 of my ballot so far, and I know a lot of people around the league feel that way. In terms of today, I just thought he used his skating to a great level. I mean, Sean, I wasn't knocking the Sharks. I think that they battled extremely hard. If you hold a team to under 20 shots, to me, I think the Jets had a lot of that game in hand, but it wasn't for lack of effort. I think the Sharks battled, and I agree with you. They didn't collapse.
The Sharks had a third period. They didn't have a third period to push.
No, but I also think that the Jets had the puck for the bulk of the first 40 minutes, but you're right. They weren't giving up a ton of there were 15 high danger chances, which is a high number, but they weren't all slot shots. And it was one of those days where, the plotting on the ice doesn't always equate with the danger or the quality of the scoring chance in that regard. So, I mean, I don't think they were running around and, getting caught, but I mean, the Jets definitely had a lot of zone time. But I mean, Morrissey was part of that. I mean, the puck movement was a lot to the outside, but they were generating a lot. I mean, Morrissey was moving his feet, activating. You know how he can drag the puck along the top of the blue line. I thought he made a lot of guys kind of turn and miss fire in terms of their routes to try to block him off. And I mean, when he gets 6 shot attempts, he's very active in the game. And also defensively, I thought that Morrissey, again, we don't like to get bogged down by the numbers all the time, but Sean, I think I looked at it before. High danger or quality chances with Josh on the ice were 11-3 in the game today. So that's a pretty wide disparity. So suggests that pairing
play.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
He controls the play better than anyone else on the ice, and doing that from the back end like that is a special skill, but he is absolutely controlling the play. Like Josh is determining how the game is going to unfold almost every single time he's on the ice.
Yeah, scoring chances 15-6 when Morrissey was on the ice. Like that's just a ridiculous number. High danger 11-3, and Josh was just very involved. I thought he was excellent in the game. Again, in terms of just briefly more about I'll go to him after. I loved his game. I thought he was very, alert all throughout at both ends of the ice, involved in the penalty kill here, the breakdown of ice time, 58-second average, 225 on the power play, 106 shorthanded, almost 26 minutes on the ice, Sean, at even strength. I mean, that's a heavy workload. Again, this guy's a horse on the back end. We know how disappointed he was not being able to suit up in the gold medal game, which he called the biggest game of his life. But he had an exceptional tournament before that, and I think that Josh is going to continue to be dominant down the stretch and into the playoffs. I mean, I just don't see it going any other way for him based on the experience he had and what he's going to want to apply to his game as he gets down to the crunch time.
Well, I don't know if I'm just seeing things like sometimes you're expecting something, but it felt to me like Josh took a step forward tonight, and it felt to me like he did it like comfortably, confidently, and without, like, some guys come back, and I thought this was Colton Parayko. I'm not taking away from Colton Parayko, but I thought Parayko was really great in that game against the Jets on Saturday, but he was really, really active, and he was jumping around. It was almost like he came back and he was energized by that, and he was taking that energy out. Josh, to me, didn't seem to like up his energy. Just something about him seemed to grow. I mean, whether it's his confidence or whatever it was, every time Josh had the puck tonight, he just seemed so composed, but so determined with it. And I'm wondering if what we're seeing is that experience adding to the confidence of a player whose confidence has grown by leaps and bounds over the last little while. But I mean, we should not expect, or we should come to expect, that after you go to your first ever best on best experience, that or go win a Stanley Cup, be part of a Stanley Cup winning team, that there's just something about you that locks in and you go a step further. And so one thing I want to talk about, because I only got to talk about it a little bit on the broadcast on Saturday, but had a long talk with Colton Parayko about Josh Morrissey, and his response to Josh Morrissey was like, I just noticed that my game changed when I was with him. I just noticed all of a sudden I was jumping into the play more often. I noticed I was getting more active. And he said, I realized it's because Josh is just so smart and he sees everything that you can jump into a hole and know that he's going to see you go there, and know that if he decides to pass it to you, if he determines that's the best pass on the ice, it'll be bang right on your stick. But also there's no worry that he's going to get caught and lose that puck. So you, as a pairing defenseman, you don't have to sit back and think, I got to sit back in case he makes a mistake, because he's like, Josh doesn't make mistakes. And he talked about a pass that he made, and we showed it on the broadcast, where he was like, I never would have seen that pass in a million years. Josh goes to the boards, scoops a puck with a guy right on his shoulder, turns, and in one motion does a spinorama, and boom, it's on the stick of Connor McDavid in the slot. He gets a slot shot from there. It wowed Colton Parayko. Well, there was a play tonight, Ken. It was subtle. I don't know if anyone else would have seen it, but I'm watching him all night getting the puck and just distributing it out of trouble, out of the zone. You want to talk about getting out of the zone, like taking the pressure off and getting out zone exits. His first touch when he gets that puck, he just gets it to the right guy on the ice. And he's I rarely saw him in trouble tonight. And there was one time, Ken, that he looked like he was in trouble, and he got the puck, and it was, and you could tell he was in trouble, because I'm talking about, like, it felt like Josh was almost moving slow motion, like Mario Lemieux, right? Like tonight, he wasn't expending all kinds of effort. It's just like he was just flowing around the ice, and he had to up his tempo a little bit because he got the puck, and there was suddenly 2 or 3 guys right on him. And Ken, he did a spin around. It was in his own zone, kind of, off to the side of the net. And he did a spinorama and fired the puck into the corner. And I thought to myself, okay, this is a guy, that's a smart play, I'm thinking, because he's just putting it into a spot where maybe they'll turn it over. But at least, all these guys who are collapsing on him, he's going to like take the heat off. But instead, he threw the puck at the corner and ricocheted off the corner straight up to the winger, who was the only guy. I looked, Ken. He was the only guy on the ice open, and you could not get it to him because all passing lanes had been shut down. And he went and just throws it off the back kind of boards in the corner and redirects up, and it's a perfect pass. And the Jets easily get out of the zone after that. Like, this guy's thinking in the fourth dimension right now. And then for him to come out the way that he did, be on the ice as long as he was, go in and blast that. Like, honestly, I think that the goaltender for the San Jose Sharks was going to win that game. He won that game. In another universe, he won that game, except or in a world where you are governed by 3 dimensions, he wins that game. Except Josh Morrissey is in the 4th dimension, and he steps up and he blasts that puck right in the perfect spot. And I just thought, I felt like I saw the body language of the goaltender was like, how did that happen? Like, I'm not letting anything in right now. Josh Morrissey just willed the Winnipeg Jets into winning that game. I feel like I saw him at a level that I've probably seen him at that level before, but I don't know, Ken, and I'm probably reading into it, but something seems different about him. Something seems elevated. And I would definitely say definitely, in my opinion, it has paid off for him. Even though he didn't get to play in the final, having that experience among the best of the best in the world paid off for Josh Morrissey. I'm calling it right now. We're going to see another level of Josh Morrissey going forward, which I didn't think was possible. But no doubt that experience, I think, is going to have paid off for Josh. And if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt-free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. Ken, I think you wanted to say something about Josh before we shut it down.
Yeah, and just lastly, I mean, just 10:49 in the third period, Sean. He played over half the period, and then he was out for, let's see here. Sorry, a good chunk of it. He was out for the entire overtime, so the whole 133.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
Remarkable. Do you want to give Sweet Lou a shout out while we're
You bet. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of this community, including our podcast.
People may notice me doing my George Hamilton impression with this tan that I came back from the Cayman Islands with. I did a Kenny and Renny show down in Cayman before. People who are, avid watchers of the show will remember that. I talked about my Auntie Shelley, who's from originally Roblin, Manitoba. Her and her husband, my Uncle John, who's from Snow Lake, Manitoba. They live out in BC now, and they operate the Treasure Cove casino out there. I never knew this, Ken. I don't know how this never came up. Conversation with my Auntie Shelley down there. Lou Ferlin was a teammate of my Uncle John on the University of Manitoba rugby team. He played rugby with them there, and for the anyways, played on that team. Hey, I think that the Lewisms have been going on since way back in the day. It's that we like to feel like we started the Lewisms and this larger than life character. Lou's been larger than life since the very beginning. I thought that was absolutely fascinating to have a family connection to sweet Lou Ferlin. I think it's rubbed off on me. And I think I was a guy who was probably going to be asleep in an alley somewhere at this point in my life. And just knowing being related to someone who played with Sweet Lou back in those days rubbed off on me enough that I'm the massive Kenny and Renny success story that you see in front of you here today. Let's get into, sorry. I want to talk about Hellebuyck before we move on, because I'll always go into games where I talk about, I think it's happened a lot this year, and I think it may be something because I keep seeing, the people talking about, the Hart Trophy, and a lot of people seems like, the odds are trending towards Leon Draisaitl. And I think Connor Hellebuyck was third in that regard, where the odds are sitting right now. So I think it's hard for a goalie to break through. And I did say this, I think the Jets are a phenomenal defensive team. And I think in the end that could potentially hurt Connor Hellebuyck's Hart Trophy chances, because there's a lot of nights where he's really not that challenged. I've talked about them before. I think there's a couple times he's had shutouts this year where he really wasn't challenged, where I didn't think he was necessarily one of the top three players in the game. This is, one of those nights where I thought Connor Hellebuyck was absolutely spectacular. I mean, he allows that first goal, but after that, like I'd said, of the opportunities that the San Jose Sharks were able to control for themselves, I thought they were the better of the two teams at producing the highest of high danger chances. I don't know. I was thinking, regardless, I thought credit should go here, because this is a goaltender that the last time we saw him before tonight was him in devastation, right? When you talk to him off the ice when he got back, this is a guy who's still trying to process what happened there. Still, this is still stinging for him. But to me, like if you're looking for a bounce back, it was here tonight, because after that first goal goes in, I just thought he was remarkable in the saves that he made over and over again. And I'm going to give you a little peek into what I'm going to be saying at the end of the show. But the Winnipeg Jets get the puck back in overtime because of the remarkable nature of Connor Hellebuyck. And to me, that is really where this game fully swung in the Jets direction, and they were going to win. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about not only what you talked about with Connor Hellebuyck on Sunday when I was flying and you were having a conversation with him, but on what you saw from him after he came back to be a Winnipeg Jet again after being the goaltender for Team USA.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that Connor's in just a remarkable headspace. And I mean, of course, there's disappointment for getting that close and losing. And, Connor talked about wanting his Ryan Miller moment, but wanting a different ending. And, unfortunately for Connor, he got the same ending as Ryan Miller. We know it's not as big a stage as the 2010 Olympics were, but it was his first chance to play best on best, against these four teams. And I thought he handled himself just incredibly well. I thought his composure level was great. I think it was great for Connor to be, I know some people were kind of wondering, why didn't he go and sit on the bench in St. Louis? But Sean, this is like in the baseball playoffs where you send the starting pitcher home, they send the starting pitcher on the road for game 3. Yeah. Of course he wants to be on the bench with his teammates, but the value of Connor getting home to spend time with his wife and kids, that's what he needed. He wasn't going to be playing. It was an Eric Comrie game. And that allowed him to be more prepared. Instead of 2 extra flights, he got ready for his start on Monday and was incredibly sharp. And Sean, we've known this about Connor basically since he came into the league. Rarely lacking confidence, but I see so much maturity in him as a person and as a goaltender. On Sunday after he did his media, we know he doesn't love doing media. He's out on the ice with his son Hugh. He right away gets his gear on, goes back out in his skates, and he's out there with his son, just like great demeanor, ready to roll. And again, he talked about how raw it is emotionally to kind of process getting so close and losing. But you can tell in his mind, he wants to be sharp down the stretch, and he wants to change the narrative around the playoff performance. He wants to win a Stanley Cup. He wants to be back in Italy next year and try to win a gold medal after this experience. But to me, I think Connor, we know he's become a leader on this Jets team. I think he became a leader quickly with that Team USA group, even though he doesn't have the same boisterous personality as guys like Tkachuk and Jack Eichel and those guys. But he showed he's the best goalie in the world, but now that's got to translate into playoff success. But you can't get to the playoffs before playing well down the stretch. I think Connor is tracking towards whatever it is, 63, 64, 65, somewhere in there in terms of his starts. I think that Eric Comrie, the way that he's played, has allowed Connor to get into the rhythm that he's going to want and need going into the playoffs. And I think he's just in a great headspace because he knows what's required of him. But he also knows, as you mentioned earlier, Sean, he knows the team is committed in front of him and they want to go out and do something special. And I think that Connor's just in a great place mentally. And again, you don't want to overreact and overanalyze certain things, but I think he hit all the right notes in what he was discussing in terms of the requisite level of disappointment, but also being around the best players in the sport and sharing the ice with them and still showing that he's, allowed 5 goals in 3 games. I mean, this is elite level net minding, and we know the hunger for him is there, and I expect him to continue to be hungry throughout the stretch drive here and to be sharp.
You know what the Winnipeg Jets, you got me thinking here, what the Winnipeg Jets have done phenomenally in the last number of years. So let's go back to them losing to the Vegas Golden Knights and their head coach coming out and saying what he said there. And then rather than being like, I think there was a lot of us who thought, well, you're just not going to have that coach back in the room after this. How do you figure this out? And I think in a lot of markets, Ken, that would have been the death stroke. That would not have been happening. You would have not have been putting those players and those coaches back together. And I think the Winnipeg Jets have become kind of these masters of conflict management, or even the avoidance of conflict, and just kind of very calmly sitting back and working your way through things. Because you were talking about Connor Hellebuyck, and it got me thinking about last year and when he came out and he said, after that playoff performance, well, I liked my game and I thought I was on top of my game. And the way that he did it, what I didn't like about that, and I stand by this to this day, what I didn't like about it is it sounded to me when Connor Hellebuyck was saying that, and you could say there was at one point he was up there and he was talking, and Adam Lowry, as the captain of the team, kind of interjected and said, disagreed with something he said there, and then Connor Hellebuyck backed down after he did that. But my take on it was like, if you played perfect and you allowed all those goals and you were as good as you possibly could have been, then it means that you were not given a chance by your team around you. And while I do think he faced a lot of tough situations, people know my thoughts on this. You're the best goalie in the world. You should have at least bail out a couple miracle saves here or there to give your team a chance and get their legs underneath them. So I didn't like that. But what I feel like I've seen is, rather than the Winnipeg Jets respond to that and be like, well, what the heck's he talking about? So he's got he doesn't carry any of this loss with him. It's all us. He was just playing his best game and the rest of us, let him down. Instead of going in that direction, the Jets, I think, are just very calmly looking at each other and saying, let's just move forward. And I think what's happened out of that, you touched on it. You said the words that kind of blinked this up in my mind here. But I think Connor Hellebuyck now, to your point, he knows how his team is playing in front of him. He knows the sacrifice they're making in front of him at this point. And I think Connor Hellebuyck gets it maybe more this year than he ever has before. It's not Connor Hellebuyck and the Winnipeg Jets. It's Connor Hellebuyck being taken to another stratosphere, and a team around him who are, aren't afraid to talk about him being, you never get a moment for where the Winnipeg Jets say, well, yeah, he's a good goalie, but how about how we're defending? They always elevate him like crazy. And I think now maybe Connor Hellebuyck has reached a new level of appreciation for the team around him. And what that's gotten to is this is a team that plays for each other. And I think more than he ever has before, Connor Hellebuyck is playing for the glory of the Winnipeg Jets and his teammates this season. I think he gets it more than he has in the past. And I think that is a result of, rather than the Winnipeg Jets hopping out, and rather than a defenseman coming out and, saying to a journalist, off the record, well, I actually didn't think, I don't know what he's talking about, like, is he calling us out or whatever? The Jets just very quietly keeping themselves in the same room, kind of, when things get a little bit sharp, just sanding down the edges, staying calm. This is a team that loves each other. They want to be around each other. And I think the Winnipeg Jets, part of their success is that they are playing more for each other than they ever have since we've seen the Winnipeg Jets back since 2011. We have to get to Scheifele and his record. I'll just let you take it away with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, we know that Mark's ultimate goal is 379 and counting to pass Dale Hawerchuk, his junior coach and mentor. But I mean, this is a big moment. And right now, at some point would the Jets love to get their history back? Of course they would. But right now, the history that they're dealing with in front of them is the Thrashers / Jets Point 2.0 history. And right now, Mark Scheifele just scored his 329th goal to move past Ilya Kovalchuk, who was an exceptional goal scorer for a long time. So that moment is to be celebrated, Sean. We've talked often about legacy, what legacy means to both Connor Hellebuyck and Mark Scheifele. Mark's the first ever draft pick. He's grown up here. Let's be honest. I mean, he came in as an 18-year-old kid wearing an NHL jersey before the Jets were even back and had a logo. I was there in the building at Xcel Energy Center. I've told the story numerous times on the show. I had already typed in my, on Twitter, ready to push send with the 7th overall selection. The Jets select Sean Couturier, and I had to delete it, and then I had to go and how do you spell Scheifele? Who is this Mark Scheifele guy?
Yeah.
He wasn't in the top rankings. He wasn't in the Bob McKenzie rankings. Yes, he just played well for Team Canada, but man, it was a scramble. And then just to see Mark and to listen to him in that first scrum, the enthusiasm that this young man was showing. And, it was just so impressive to see. And were there some rocky moments for Mark along the way? Of course there were. But hey, any of us who grew up between 18 and 30 years old, I'm pretty sure that if we were under the same scrutiny and microscope that Mark Scheifele was on, there would have been a few hiccups for us as well, and probably way more hiccups than what Mark himself has gone through. I'm just so impressed. Same thing. We talk about maturity. The way that Mark is, talking about and embracing the community. This is a guy that loves playing here. He wants to be all over the record books. He wants to put up he wants to bring a Stanley Cup home. He takes enormous pride playing for a team that his mentor starred with. And, because you were down there, I'm going to turn it over to you. I thought he gave an incredible answer when you asked him the question, Sean, about what that young Mark Scheifele would think about this accomplishment. And again, I think that you can handle that better than me. I did listen to it, but you were standing there and you saw the look on Mark's face when he delivered that answer.
Well, I think it just it builds on what adds or is just another example of what I was just saying with Connor Hellebuyck about the where these players have got to the point that they're playing for each other, right? Like I think what we've seen, John Liu and I were talking, and John Liu is saying, since I've arrived, just like so many of these players have just taken their game to another level, like Cole Perfetti and even Mark Scheifele, and he just had so many examples of so many, Josh Morrissey, clearly, of all these players Dylan Sandberg, who've just gone to another level. And like, remember, everyone just sit back and remember it was on this show. A lot of you had been saying it, not just at that time, but for years. There was a real call in the Winnipeg Jets audience to move on from Mark Scheifele not that long ago. And I still remember sitting here and being like, be careful what you wish for. If you get Mark Scheifele in the right headspace, and I said, I foresee this. If you move Mark Scheifele and you get him into a dressing room with a really strong leader in that dressing room, you are going to see a version of Mark Scheifele that's everything that you've ever wanted, which he's showed us he could be before back in the 2018 playoffs. And honestly, you don't get to lead a franchise in goals scored if you're not very, very good the entire way along. But people were getting frustrated with how he back checked and the defensive effort, and sometimes they didn't think that the effort was there. You don't see that from him anymore because he wants to play for everybody around him. And I think sometimes perspective comes with age. Sometimes I think what happened with the Winnipeg Jets is perspective came from a guy who had all the perspective in the world in Rick Bowness, who came in and just kind of showed everybody a different way of approaching things that I really think has had a massive effect on all the stars of this team. But I think one of those things that it's done is Mark Scheifele went from a player that I think was very, very close to leaving Winnipeg to now a player that understands that he's who he is because the Winnipeg Jets did everything in their power as an organization to open the doors and put him in a spot to become the player that he is. Now, that does not happen with a lot of players in the NHL, Ken. And there's, does it happen with the first round draft picks more often than the fifth rounders? For certain it does, right? But the Winnipeg Jets wanted to draft Mark Scheifele, and they wanted to say, with our first pick, we take this guy who's going to be our future number one center and maybe one of the best players to ever play for this team. And they nourished him and they helped him grow and they provided him with opportunities. And they, at every single turn, the Winnipeg Jets have been there for Mark Scheifele. And what I heard in that answer was a guy who very much what I heard, Ken, is humility. What I heard is a player who does everything to be great, but was not beating his chest and not saying, you know what, I always knew I was going to be great and I was going to do this and I was going to do that. What I heard was a guy who's like, I can't believe I'm here, but I know why I'm here. And that has to do a lot with me, but it has to do so much with all the guys in this room and this core that I've been together with for so long, and an organization that believed in me and gave me time to come along. And let's be honest, how many other teams would have moved on or dismantled the core of a team like the Winnipeg Jets, who showed so much promise going way back? We're talking 8 years ago now, and then year after year has disappointed in the playoffs. Not a lot would have stuck together. The Winnipeg Jets have believed in Mark Scheifele since the very beginning, and that belief has never wavered. And because of it, Mark Scheifele is now the franchise leader in goals scored and is soon to be passing Dale Hawerchuk along the way there as well. Just a marriage that, like every marriage, you got to work at it. But if you're committed to each other, you're going to get to the other side with each other. And that's what's happened with the Winnipeg Jets and Mark Scheifele.
Yeah, and just to tie a bow on that, I mean, I found Mark Chipman after on the day of the announcement of the signings, and I've been wondering about this for a long time, and we know that people around Winnipeg, with the benefit of history, are incredibly disappointed that Dale Hawerchuk wasn't a Steve Yzerman. He should have been someone that spent his entire career with the Jets. And I flat out asked Mark if he felt that, in some ways, the ability to keep Mark Scheifele as a lifelong Jet was important to him based on knowing what happened to Dale. And he absolutely agreed with that. And it was one of the driving forces behind, the dual signings. So, and I've also said this before too, and I have to believe it. I know Mark has never confirmed it with me, Mark Scheifele, that is, but I believe that in one of those, if it wasn't in one of the final conversations, it happened before, Dale relayed to Mark how good that he had it in Winnipeg, or has it in Winnipeg. And I think that Mark took those words to heart. And I think that was probably a factor in him committing to sticking here long-term as well.
Yeah. Okay. We should move on to the Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game. What do you got, Ken?
Yeah, you know what? There were a couple different options, and all worthy candidates. But
Yeah.
honestly, I think that the Logan Stanley, the ability to knock the puck off the stick of Macklin Celebrini, was the one that I'm going to go with. I'm not trying to steal yours, but that one I think is just given the circumstances. It was one of the situations where Celebrini maybe makes that a 2-0 game. Who knows if the Jets can pull a rabbit out of their hat? But to me, it was great hustle by Logan Stanley to knock the puck off his stick. And yes, I get it. Some people are saying, "Oh, why was he in a chase position in the first place?" That's fine, but he made the play when it mattered.
Okay, well, let's put it like this. Okay, so Ken was originally going to go with, until he pulled this rabbit out of the hat on me here in the show. He was originally going to go with Adam Lowry, who prevented a backdoor tap, and that was going to be a sure goal. And I was going to say,
Toffoli, yeah.
I agree with Ken that is the most pure Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game. But what I was going to go with is the I know it's the play of the game, but if you take the plays by Logan Stanley, so yeah, he's in that chase position, but he pulls that off and he takes, steals a breakaway away from, or a clean breakaway chance away from the most dangerous player on the San Jose Sharks. But early, and so, okay, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, he put out a fire that he helped start and blah, blah. I get that. Okay, that's fine. And you're not wrong in that regard. But earlier on, I believe he ended up out on the ice. I think it was with Josh Morrissey, and Josh is up, and one of the few times he gets caught down the ice, it's a 2-on-1 going the other way, and it's Logan Stanley who breaks up the 2-on-1 in that situation. If that pass goes through, I think it's another goal there. So I think he stole a good, but potentially 2 goals off the board here tonight. So, I mean, I know the Logan Stanley haters aren't going to like it, but there's a reason that the coaches keep him in the lineup. We've been debating to try and find out what that is. I think as the season has gone on, he's starting to get a little bit more comfortable, and he's paying off his coaches in this situation. And the payoff for him tonight is the double Johnston Group Got You Covered plays of the game, awarded by one by Ken, another by myself. Hey, he had an impact on the game here tonight. Give him credit for it. That's the Johnston Group Got You Covered plays of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Ken, are you going to throw a monkey wrench into the plans for my keg save of the game as well, that I've picked based on what you told me you were going to pick? What do you got?
Oh, I thought it was Hellebuyck on Celebrini, I think, is the best save of the game for
the
me.
One-timer?
Yeah, on the power play. Yeah.
On the power play.
Second period, yeah.
Again, I think you were right in, just like you were with the Lowry thing, and that the purest version of that is the save of the game. However, Wenberg goes in overtime and cuts to the front of the net, and I had closed my laptop. Like he had a goal there, and Connor Hellebuyck puts the toe out, beats him to that spot, makes that save, and that's what turns the puck over and gets it back into the hands of the Winnipeg Jets, who, listen, if you want to know why the Winnipeg Jets keep having these win streaks, it's because when they get games into overtime, it's not often that they lose in overtime, and they're able to generate in overtime because they get down, they slow things down, and then they just can run pick play after pick play after pick play, and they wait to see who's going to fall for that pick play. It's so interesting to see other teams try and play this flow game against them, where they're trying to sneak a guy in behind them and get a pass across, and it works here or there, but consistently the Winnipeg Jets and those pick plays are overtime magic. So for me, that's the Connor Hellebuyck hashtag the keg save of the game. Doesn't matter what Ken and I think, though. Matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate, usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And the winner from our last show, it would be Gift Guy. Gift Guy, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name, send me an email, and I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate, usable and any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And that brings us to our TCB, Trans-Canada Brewing Company lamplighter of the game. What do you got, Ken?
Well, I'm going to save the milestone goal for you. Just I thought absolutely, I it's hard for me to ignore Clap City special. So I'm going to go with the Morrissey slapper that gets the game to overtime and allows Mark Scheifele to enjoy his moment. And Sean, again, you were down there and I was able to just listen while I was writing. It's so funny. Morrissey saying he's probably thought about the record more than Mark Scheifele has, and talked about, envisioning him setting him up for a backdoor tap. Well, that didn't happen. But Mark Scheifele's goal is not possible without the Josh Morrissey 6-on-5 equalizer. So I'm going with that one.
I just want everyone on the record to know this. Ken, he comes across as a nice guy, doesn't he? He comes across like he's just, peaches and cream and a ray of sunshine. And here tonight, he keeps nicely trying to defer to me and then stepping ahead and stealing my choice, because that also is my choice. Hey, it's great that happened for Mark Scheifele, and it's significant. But what you saw from Josh Morrissey, as I described earlier on, was him willing the Winnipeg Jets back into winning this game. You don't win in overtime if you don't get it to overtime. And I just thought that shot was, I don't know. I would like to have seen what it was clocked at, but Josh Morrissey, when he is one of these guys, I talked last show about Gabe Vilardi becoming one of these guys who shows up in the right moments. This Jets team keeps scoring almost on command, but when Josh Morrissey scores, man, it's usually pretty big. And usually it's Josh Morrissey who, like we talked about, always seems to be directing play everywhere on the ice when he's on top of his game, and he's almost always on top of his game. But this, to me, was just Josh Morrissey saying, not on my watch. And to me, it was just another sign of what I think I'm going to see. I feel like I saw tonight was an elevation of a player who a couple of years ago you wouldn't have thought could elevate to where he was. I think the evolution of Josh Morrissey took another step forward, and I think that was the first kind of showing of it. Anyways, you don't have to agree with that. You could give us your own lamplighter of the game. Yeah, make sure you say hashtag TCB lamplighter, because if you do, you're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your 8-pack, you can just head on down to 11290 Kenniston and join them in their tap room. Great environment, great people, lots of good beers. The food is off the charts. And of course, the pizza, in my opinion, is absolutely the best in the city. And that brings us to our winner of the TCB lamplighter from our last show. That would be FRW 1982. FRW, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name, send me an email, and I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. If you've had it, you don't need me to tell you, but I will tell you. It is the nectar of the gods. Ken, anything to say before we go?
No, another fun day at the barn. Safe travels. Enjoy Ottawa, and we will see you on Wednesday.
Yes, yeah, going to be a big tilt Wednesday night hockey, and then a couple games after that, we will be doing hockey night in Canada for the as the Jets will host the Philadelphia Flyers. Then we're off for the trade deadline, Ken, and then if Alexander Ovechkin keeps going at this torrid pace that he sets, I'm going to be gone before too long. But regardless, there's no Hockey Night in Canada Jets games after that one on the 1st until Utah back way up in April. So if I was missing, I will still continue to do these shows, although I'll have a lot of stuff going on with the Ovechkin chase. Not enough to take me away from this show. I can't stay away from you people. You're the lifeblood of both Ken and I, and we want to thank you for showing up like you always do, like you always bring it. And I want to thank you, Ken, for doing a great job. And I will say this before we do go: if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, I would implore you to appreciate the contributions by our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Ferlin, the Johnston Group, who are, of course, the Kenny and Renny OGs, Trans-Canada Brewing Company, and the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Let's do this all again when I will be in Ottawa on Wednesday. Looking forward to it. I hope you are as well. Talk to you later, folks.